Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Posner of the Mindful Advantage, and welcome to another installment of the Conquer Your Inner Critic Interview Summit. Today's guest is Doepker. Derek is the founder of Excuse Proof Fitness, a #1 best-selling fitness author and an independent team Beachbody coach. He started his journey eating fast food every single night and hating exercise. Excuse me. After learning simple strategies to reprogram his habits and stay fit on a busy schedule and limited budget, he made it his mission to share the clever and cutting-edge insights he's discovered with others striving to get and stay fit for life. Welcome, Derek, and thanks for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, glad to be here, Jim.
Excellent. So before we get into what you're doing now, can you tell us a little bit about how you grew up and where you grew up and how that may have impacted and played a role in your journey?
Sure thing. So I grew up in Indiana, Evansville, Indiana, to be specific, where not a whole lot was going on in Indiana. So what I ended up getting into and how I spent most of my time was guitar playing. And my background, as you said, I have a fitness background. I also do a lot now in personal development and business. But when I grew up, my life was essentially just play guitar, become a rock star. And from the age of about 12 to, even through college, I went and got a music degree. That was my primary focus. And so just a little, skip ahead. Like I never would have imagined I'd be here speaking on any topic, speaking, writing books, doing any of that. My life was music, become a rock star. That was it. So I got my music degree. And also around the age of 17 was when I got into health and fitness. And so there's a little bit of backstory to that, but I didn't hit rock bottom. I wasn't I wasn't really like overweight or anything. I was out of shape in terms of like scrawny and weak, poor health, low energy levels, a lot of acne, but I wasn't, I didn't have like a major crisis in my health that turned me around. What ended up motivating me and inspiring me was I read a book and it showed me the damage that I was doing to my body. I really gained a lot of awareness of, this is actually what junk food does. Before that, it was just like, there's healthy and unhealthy food, but that was abstract. What does that even mean? Why is it going to matter what I eat? And so when I learned the insights of what was going on inside my body, I asked myself a question, just like, well, how do I want to be? How do I want to be in this world? What's my ideal self when I'm in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond? What does that look like? And that's a really important question, regardless. It's not a fitness-specific question. A lot of what I do now actually is more a holistic approach to life. It was really, how do I want to show up in the world? And I imagine for the listeners of this, by being here and listening, you're committed to I want to reach my highest potential. I want to be the best version of myself. I want to at least overcome some inner doubts and fears and inner critic and whatever is showing up for you. So I embrace this idea of, I really want to be my best self. I want to feel good about myself. I want to know that I'm setting a good example for the people that I care about. And so that inspired me to really embrace the world of health and fitness. And I became kind of obsessed with it. Like I became obsessed with guitar, a number of years prior. And I'll skip ahead to say that I spent the next years in college studying music, being into health and fitness. And what just messed with my head was, how is it that some people would come to me asking for advice and I'd share with them what I did. And I had a friend who lost a lot of weight. He got a 6-pack, lost over 50 pounds following my advice. And then there'd be other people who would come to me, they'd get the same advice and they either wouldn't do anything with it. They'd be like, oh yeah, that's great. And then nothing would change, or they'd start to do it and they'd slip off the rails. Now, that's not just something I saw with other people. That's something I saw with myself, where I'd go, wait a second, why is it that I have good habits in some area, but when I tell myself I'm going to start keeping my, being more organized, or I'm going to keep my place clean, or I'm going to make these other life changes. I really need to get out more. I'm an introvert. I probably should learn to talk to people more and stuff. Why is it that when I said that to myself and I got good advice, I still wouldn't always follow through with it? That's where I got into the insights about our inner world, our mindset, our beliefs in ourselves, how certain self-doubts, in some areas I had self-doubt and it held me back. In other areas, I just thought, oh, sure, I could do it. And I went for it. And that started my journey of psychology, personal development, which I've spent now, I don't know how many years. I guess you could say it started with health and fitness, so probably over 10 years ago, but definitely in the last, I would say, 5+ years, I've immersed myself in the world of personal development and really practical personal development, not the fluffy, just think positive, you can do it type of stuff, but really what does it take to make lasting inner changes in our mindset, in our habits, and to overcome those doubts, those fears, and create the life we want, which is now what I'm committed to sharing with people.
So when you say you've immersed yourself in that world, what does that mean exactly?
Well, it means a couple things. First of all, I'll tell you, it does include reading books, listening to podcasts, listening to events like this that bring in many different experts, learning from the world's top experts, spending tens of thousands of dollars on training and experiences. But it also means something, and this is key. There's a number of people who will get a lot of information, but sometimes more information actually interferes with implementation. They learn, they study, they get the stuff, they go, that's cool, and they get it in their minds, but their life doesn't change. And that's because they haven't either implemented it or implemented it in a way that it goes from just being an idea to something that's ingrained in them. So these last 5 years, just as much as I've studied and I've, learned about personal development, it's really the life practice that makes the difference. It's building multiple businesses and the ups and downs and the challenges and the fears and writing my first book, talk about self-doubt. I'm like, who's going to listen to me? I'm at the time, I'm a no-name broke valet parker. How am I going to do this with barely any money? I think I'm going to write personal development books. Like, how am I going to compete with the Tony Robbins or Jack Canfields of the world? Lots of self-doubt that I had to learn to overcome in those ways. And so by doing that, being in relationships with people in my life and putting those relationship skills to the test, in a nutshell, I had to practice it too. And I had to see what worked, what didn't work for me. Then to take it a step further in coaching people for a number of years, I go, wait a second, we have different personalities. We're at different stages in our life. Here's what recommendations I would give to this person. I had to learn how to tailor advice to people, because here's something that's really important. And especially important as you're listening to this and as you're hearing from multiple experts, there's a lot of good advice out there. But even the best advice in the world can be destructive if it's taken in the wrong situation. And so what that means is someone says, this was great, this was what really helped me, awesome. But if you're not at the same stage that they are, if you don't have the same calling in life, if you don't know how to take that information and apply it to you, it can actually be harmful in a sense. So I give this, I sort of pose this philosophical question, and I'll just ask you, Jim, what you think most people are going to say. If I go, is it a good idea to breathe?
Of course.
Okay. Of course it's a good idea to breathe. Really? So what happens if your head is dunked underwater? Are you telling me you want to try to breathe in that situation?
Probably not.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a little bit of like, oh, wait a second. Great advice to breathe most of the time. You can still find a situation where you go, you know what, actually, I maybe want to hold my breath in this situation. So that when you get that, that's the abstract, kind of big picture way of looking at it. One of the things I'll be sharing with you today, I'm sure as we get into it, is some of the advice, that's great advice. You also got to learn the nuance of when to do it, when not to do it. And there's one shortcut for that can really speed up the process of figuring that out. And I'll just, I'll reveal it right here.
Please do.
Get a mentor or a coach, or have multiple mentors or coaches, and have people outside of you. This can also even just be friends, people that can see your blind spots. You know, I have this pointed up in relationships with people. I do something on a habitual basis that's generally a good idea. Then someone points out, you know what, actually, Derek, that doesn't work for me. I'm like, oh, okay. I got to adjust. I got to correct. We all have our blind spots. So having outsiders is critical to helping you make these adjustments and navigate through the world. And also the other big thing is being compassionate with yourself that, look, you're going to screw things up. Things are going to go wrong. That's part of the learning process. And as we get into talking about self-doubt, one of the biggest things that will increase the voice of your inner doubter or increase self-doubt is thinking you got to get it right, be a perfectionist, and beating ourselves up for getting things wrong. If you can embrace this idea of, you know what, I'm going to screw things up and that's okay, it's very hard to doubt yourself in that situation, because you go, where's the fear at? If I'm okay making a mistake, and that takes some practical strategies that I can reveal to get to that point, when you actually get to that point of it's all a lesson, success or failure, as long as I get the lesson, that's what moves me forward, then you'll release a lot of that doubt, because it doesn't have anything to hold on to. So what if it doesn't work out, as long as I learn from it and keep going forward? So
you're talking really about getting comfortable with stepping outside your comfort zone almost. You know, there's that getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So what are your tips for doing that?
Yeah. And so that is part of the idea, is getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Now, I heard this for years and I'm like, great advice. How do I do that? Like, a lot of people say, get outside your comfort zone. So there's a few, obviously there's a number of approaches that you can take. One thing can just be reframing it. And so you can say you're getting outside of your comfort zone, or you can say, I'm simply stretching my comfort zone. And so I'm just going to a slightly beyond point of what is totally comfortable, but I'm not going to the point of completely freaking myself out. Now,
great.
So how do you do that? I'll get you something very practical. And if I were to just reveal anything, if you were to just get one takeaway that I could share with people, it would be the 3 magic words technique. And I had a woman who emailed me. She had depression. She said these 3 magic words, this magic question, if you will, was in some ways more effective than 15 years of therapy. And this is something that if you have fear, doubt, overwhelm, procrastination, it can work through all of that. It just breaks right through all of that.
I'm ready to write it down.
So the 3 magic words, I'll start with the words and then go into how it works. They are, can I just ... And what you do is you then insert something that is purposely, get this, within your comfort zone, within your level of willpower. Okay, so this is a little counterintuitive. We're trying to break outside of our comfort zone, but what we want to do is stay right inside our comfort zone. It's a little bit of a paradox. So here's how this works. Have you ever, and I see this with fitness, just think about it. Have you ever not wanted to do something, but once you got into it and you got into momentum, then it was a lot easier, right? So I see someone who's like, for myself, I don't want to go work out. I'm like, I think about going to the gym, working out. I'm like, that's too much. But I know once I'm 5 minutes into it, I'll be fine. And I'll be really into it. Then I want to keep going. So here's the trick. Don't try to get motivation and fire yourself up. Instead, go for momentum and then let the motivation follow. Momentum generates motivation. So here's what happens. It's a concept called, BJ Fogg, I believe, calls it tiny habits. Stephen Geis has a book called Mini Habits, great resources. The idea is this: can I just do 1 push-up? Now, if I ask myself that question, A, it's within my comfort zone. B, it's almost so absurdly easy, I can't say no. And what happens is, here's the magic part. Okay, yes, I can do that. I ask myself the question, I go, yes, I do 1 push-up. Well, what do you think happens next? I do 1 push-up, I'm on the ground. Okay, well, can I just do 5 more? I mean, I'm already down here, and it's 5 more. It's so easy, for me, wherever you're at, maybe it's, you choose something that is easier for you. And the answer is, well, yes, of course. Okay. Can I just do a little bit more? Next thing you know, I'm in momentum, and then I go, okay, what's something that's challenging, but still doable? I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can challenge myself to do a set of push-ups and a set of pull-ups. That's challenging, but I'm kind of in motion. I feel like I can do that. So I'm stretching my comfort zone. It's a little challenging, but at this point, I feel like I can do it. Then I do that. Now, you know what happens for a lot of people is they do those, couple minutes. Now they're into it. Next thing you know, they don't even have to talk themselves into it. They'll just do an entire workout. Or if they don't, guess what? They just did more than they would have done otherwise. And something very powerful happens here is that when you start to see yourself moving forward, when you start to experience yourself taking action and moving forward, that overcomes a lot of doubt, that overcomes a lot of resistance, and you build this positive mentality that says, you know what, I'm doing this. Just one step at a time, but that's all it takes. And so one way to look at comfort zone is just messing with our perspective, playing these mind games, as I call it. And that is, I'll give another fitness example, and then I'll change the situation. There's a 20-foot tall rope at a beach in Santa Monica Beach that I used to climb on a regular basis. Now, in some ways, I've climbed to the top of that rope multiple times in my life. So I could say I've climbed 20 feet in the air. Or I can play a little mind game with myself and go, you know what? I've actually never climbed 20 feet in my life. All I've ever done is climbed 1 foot 20 times in a row, because that's really what it is. And so when people step back and they see this whole huge, like high off the ground, or they go, I want to write a book. Oh my God, there's so much stuff to do. Or I want to start a business, or I want to get in a relationship, or, things are falling. They see the whole thing. And it's like, actually, all of those things are accomplished with just these small little micro steps. And once you take that first step, you actually feel more inspired to take the next step, and then the next step. And we could get into the deeper psychology of this, but I would just say, we could spend hours talking about why this works, or you could just go out there and do it and see for yourself how it works. Another example, cleaning my apartment. I look at the whole apartment. It's a mess. I go, I don't want to do it, right? But if I go, well, can I just clean off my desktop here? That's going to take me 30 seconds or a minute. Okay, sure. That's easy. My pride would hurt me if I said no. I'd be like, I'd almost feel embarrassed for myself if I said I couldn't do that. So I go, yeah, sure. I do that. Next thing you know, I'm cleaning. I maybe got an audiobook I'm listening to. Well, I want to keep listening to the audiobook. I kind of like cleaning. Next thing you know, I clean the next counter. Then I'm cleaning the bathroom, cleaning the whole place. I want to write an article. Seems overwhelming. Can I just open my word processor and brainstorm 3 title ideas for the article? Sure. Okay, now can I just come up with a few headlines? Sure. 5 minutes into it, next thing you know, I'm spending the next 30 minutes getting the article written out, and I didn't even feel that uncomfortable at any point because I took such gradual steps. So that's one way of working with your comfort zone, is to actually, if you want to take major action, I say flip it around, and actually, paradoxically, you take extremely minor actions that add together and ultimately lead to major action. Would you like another way to work with the comfort zone?
Sure.
Okay. So here's the thing. What if you made your comfort zone your discomfort zone? What if you made your comfort zone really uncomfortable? Wouldn't you naturally just get out of it if all of a sudden what used to be comfortable was uncomfortable? Okay, so what do I mean by that? Here's the thing. If I'm comfortable, I've done this when I wrote a book. So maybe I get into these phases. I love to play games. I love to watch movies. I love to basically, just kind of like sit around and take it easy as much as anyone. I've written multiple books. I've been very productive, but I can just as easily go to the sit around and do nothing all day type of beingness. So
just to interject, it's 9 books, I think, is the last count. Is that correct?
Yes, and multiple courses and different things like that. So some people go
production, really, and bestsellers, and so we'll talk about that at the end. So
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. And so I learned that not because I'm like Mr. Wake Up. I don't jump out of the bed in the morning. Oh my God, I got to like get stuff done. I've trained myself to do that. I would rather just sleep in till noon. I'm a musician. Sleep in. I don't want to get up before the crack of noon. Come on. I just want to lay around, play guitar, watch Netflix. Like I can really be in that state very easily. So what I'm teaching is in the trenches. How do I break myself out of that? And okay, that worked for me. Oh my gosh, it works for so many other people too. And a lot of what I share is it comes from people smarter than me, or it comes from me just screwing up enough that I eventually figured out something that worked. And hey, if it works for you too, great. So if I'm in one of those states where I'm not feeling particularly inspired to write for a few hours a day, and that seems like a lot of work, and I'd rather just kind of sit around and take it easy, and I'm in my comfort zone, right? Settling for the status quo. Well, what would happen if I all of a sudden tell a group of people, some friends that say, hey, if I don't get a rough draft of my book written or the next chapter written by next week, I'm going to pay you all $20 or $50. Okay. Now, if something's on the line, if I'm sitting around not writing that book or not getting it done, I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm going, oh man, I don't want to have to pay for that or whatever. Or if I make a public accountability statement and I tell people like I'm doing this and expect it out. So one way I did it, we can get into something called case study mindset if you'd like, but I'll give the bullet points version, is I created a case study for authors. So this was not my first book, but my last book. I said, I'm going to release the book by Christmas time. And I will show you everything I do. So they invest in a training for like $100. And I'm going to show you everything I do. And if I don't get the book out by that time and launched or have the rough draft done, then all of you get your money back. So that means I would have been losing essentially thousands of dollars if I didn't get that book done. Now, what do you think happened over the next couple of months? I had opportunities for paid freelance gigs that normally I would have taken. But you know what? I said, actually, no. I got this other project I'm working on. Yes, I gave up a little bit of money from these freelance things, but I was so committed to this project because of the investment that I made and because something was on the line that it would have been more uncomfortable for me to sit around and be lazy than it was for me to be productive. Being productive was more comfortable and more inspiring than doing my default thing because something was on the line. And that's what happens when many people, they want to make a change, but there's really nothing on the line if they don't do it. So it's really easy to stay comfortable. And also on the flip side is not everything's about quote unquote punishments. That's not the idea. It's also, well, what am I gaining from this? And so here's the other thing that will not work is if a person takes these steps and let's say they do the Can I Just and they do 5 minutes of a workout that day, or they start to get a book done, or they create a project, or they do whatever, and they go, yeah, but it wasn't that big of a deal. I see this happen. I had a friend of mine. She was so stressed out about writing a book. She finally wrote the book, got it done. It was such a journey for her in turmoil. And then when she was done with it, her thought was like, well, some people have multiple books and my book isn't even that big of it. It's not even that long of a book. And so she instantly discredited all of her accomplishment. So not only is there often not something on the line for failure to complete, but then when a person does complete it, they're not even giving themselves credit at times or feeling that sense of accomplishment. So here's the thing. When it comes to your comfort zone, if you make your current comfort zone uncomfortable and then you make your new desired behavior something that you praise yourself for, that you feel a sense of accomplishment, now that becomes more comfortable. Now all of a sudden I feel better being productive and I feel worse being unproductive. It now becomes flipped where being unproductive and just sitting around watching TV all day, I go, I just don't really feel good. I don't feel that sense of accomplishment. And I just feel like I'm kind of not really fulfilling my purpose in life. And it's uncomfortable. And maybe even I have something on the line at this point. I'm like, I don't want to have to make those sacrifices. And you know what? It's a lot more fun now at this point to actually just go for it and to do things. So there's a number of strategies around this, but that's the core idea, is that you can actually make your comfort zone uncomfortable, and then you use your desire to be comfortable to actually move you forward instead of hold you back.
I love it. It's really good information. Great ideas. Fantastic. So here's a question, and I'm sure from all your reading and your psychology reading and successful people, emulating them and so forth, and picking up pointers, a lot of successful people have a specific morning routine. Do you have a specific morning routine? And if so, please indulge.
Yeah, so morning routines are great because they can set your mentality for the day. They can get you off on the right foot. So I have a fairly condensed morning routine. I got the idea from Hal Elrod, The Miracle Morning. And so he has his savers concept. And so there's things like silence, which could be time for just reflection, meditation. There could be affirmations, visualization, exercise. There could be scribing, which is writing. And so my version is I usually do at least 5 minutes of meditation in the morning. I just simply set a timer. And by the way, here's how the can work with meditation. One thing that got me in the habit, can I just do 30 seconds of meditation a day? Because the thing is, at first, consistency at first is more important than quantity of how much you do. So it's just getting into the practice of doing it each day that was most important at first. Eventually, you do want to consider the quality and how much you do and things like that. But at first, it was creating that practice. So some meditation. One thing I actually just added to my morning routine is I'm fortunate to be in Southern California, going out and getting a little bit of sunshine. So that helps the circadian rhythms go, okay, it's daytime. I see I'm out in the sun. So at least just a little bit of time in the sun to get that, doing a little bit of walking, a little bit of movement. So not intense exercise, but some movement, being outside. I'll often listen into something that's, educational on my iPad. So that's what I did today. And then I may do some rebounding and occasionally, haven't always done this, but some visualization and affirmations to go along with that. But definitely the movement, sunshine, and meditation are core parts of my morning routine.
When you said rebounding, what's rebounding?
Yeah, so rebounding is also that's a term for basically jumping on a trampoline. I have a mini trampoline, and so I'll do some jumping on that. Yeah.
Some exercise, basically.
Yep.
Cool. Interesting. So you have written on a number of different genres. You write on fitness, you write on nutrition. Am I leaving anything else? That's primarily the genres that I've seen, correct?
Yeah, so fitness, health and fitness, and really a lot of it was the mindset aspect.
The underline for fitness and nutrition is
very
much the mindset, no doubt.
Yeah, so the fitness and nutrition, and also now it's much more focused on the mindset of creating habits, of getting unstuck, breaking through our limiting thinking, and also a lot of different, as I call it, once again, mind games that we can play with ourselves to shift our perspective, work with our psychology, and especially custom tailor approaches based off of your unique psychology. So when you understand what's driving you, how can you pick the right strategies and methods that are really going to work with your personality versus just trying to force yourself into a box that maybe that's perfect for someone else, but it's just not in alignment with who you are and what you prefer.
So, I mean, you seem to be really inventive, I think, with these kind of mind hacks that you've come up with and implemented and are successful at implementing, which I think is amazing. So here's the question, and we may have touched on it, but why do you think that you are good at kind of sticking with the habits once you create them? So many people try to create those habits and they do it for a week. It's the January in the gym syndrome, where for a week or two they're in the gym and then they're not. What do you think? What do you think does it that flips that switch so people can create consistency with these practices?
Yeah. And so I'll first of all say that what it's not is it's not me being necessarily particularly special or gifted with the most insane amount of willpower and discipline. Like I said, I can be as inconsistent and lazy as possible. In fact, I think that's the gift, is that by learning how to overcome that, that's where I found out, okay, how do you actually develop some consistency? So one thing
And
I
to
will
be clear, you did touch on this. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
I know we're
There's some key points though. So since you
yeah.
brought it up, it's perfect. And thank you for bringing this up, because there are some points about consistency. And that is, first of all, if a person has at their core some limiting beliefs, and it's something that violates their belief in themselves and their values, it's going to be hard for them to get themselves to do something. If it's a lot of, I should be doing this, but they don't really wholeheartedly believe it's possible for them, or that it really is the best use of their time, or these different things, it's going to be hard to get going. Now, there's tactics around that, but I'm just laying the framework. Another thing is they go too big at first. They try to change too much all at once, and then they get overwhelmed. That's the beauty of the can I just approach. Pick something that's actually within what's feasible, and then challenge yourself. Now, there's a little bit of a caveat, and here's where I say it's customized to the individual. When a person has a lot of self-belief, when a person really loves to do something, then and they already have good momentum, the key thing for them is to actually challenge themselves and really push themselves to step it up. Okay. But when someone's just getting into something, and when someone maybe doesn't totally believe in themselves, or they've made the New Year's resolution and they've quit and they've lost a lot of trust in themselves, that's where the consistency and actually taking a more gradual approach is key. So for instance, I do martial arts, and you get a black belt, you don't want to take a black belt, doesn't want an easy match. They go, give me the hardest person I can fight, because I'm at an elite level. But you don't do that to a white belt. You don't just crush them over and over because they get discouraged. Like screw this, I don't want to do this anymore. So the approach adjusts depending on where you're at in a process. So for many people, if they lack consistency, means they're in the early stages. They need to simplify it, choose smaller things. Another reason for lack of consistency is they don't have just one simple thing when creating a new habit that causes people to fail. And it's not because it's too hard. It's because they don't have a reminder. A lot of times it's just as simple as, I'm not meditating each day, but I'm only giving myself a 30-second target. Why is that? Oh, I just forget about it. I need a note. I need something in my cell phone. I need something that's going to remind me to do that. And here's another key part of the process. You need the reminder, you need the doable habit, and then you need this one thing to reinforce it. Otherwise, you could do something for months and then quit, even though it's been done consistently for months. And that is a sense of reward. And not reward as in I'm going to buy myself present after 3 months when I get this thing done. I mean, every single time I do something, every single time I do this workout, every single time I write a chapter in a book, every single time I tell someone what I'm grateful for, I give myself a little bit of self-acknowledgement. I go, yes, nice, I'm happy, I feel proud. Take a moment to soak in that pride. Like I said, too many people, unfortunately, they'll just be like, yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal, whatever. And they don't get that reinforcement in the brain that habits have cue, routine, and reward. So if you study The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, he talks about this. If you don't get that reward each time you do the behavior, or if you're doing it just for the prize that you get in 3 months, 6 months, or a year, then it's not reinforcing it to the point where what happens is when you do this correctly, you actually sometimes get addicted to the good behavior. I went from hating exercise and eating healthy to loving it, and then to the point where it's you couldn't pay me to go back to my old habits because it felt so good inherently. It just feels good for its own sake. So that's absolutely critical. But to help get to that point, you can do some things like having some external quote unquote rewards and punishments that help you get in that routine to get started. But ultimately what we're really driving for is a more intrinsic motivation where you do it simply because it's rewarding for its own sake.
Awesome. Again, just unbelievable insight and advice. And I think it's incredible how you have built this whole lifestyle out of giving all this good advice. Again, to your own admission, coming from this completely different lifestyle. And I think you're really relatable. And that's why, one of the reasons that people come to you and really trust your advice. So Derek, tell us a little bit about what you have going on now, new projects going on, any new books in the pipeline?
Sure thing. So what I'm really fired up about right now is doing more coaching for people who want to accomplish their dreams. So if you have a financial dream, if you have a relationship dream, if you have a health and fitness dream, you have all these dreams, you want to create a life that's more on your terms, living your dreams, and you feel like that's something you're called to do. What I do is a process called dream coaching, which I was trained by Marshall Weeder, who is Jack Canfield's coach. So I love taking people through the dream coaching process, where we actually have a whole week that we spend on how to handle the inner doubter, the inner critic, and how to work with that. Because here's the thing to understand about doubts is that you're going to have them. They're okay. They're actually sometimes very helpful to have some doubts. It kind of like keep ourselves in check. The challenge is if people don't know how to manage their doubt, or the doubts stop them, completely derail them, hold them back, paralyze them, and they live a life of mediocrity and ultimately a lot of regret at the end that they let their doubts hold them back. So there's processes through that. Processes for changing beliefs. I also have a background in neuro-linguistic programming. Some great stuff in there, some things that I'm like, whatever. But I find the best of the best things that work from that background and other backgrounds, and really help a person get the stronger belief in themselves, overcome the inner doubter, get a lot of clarity and a sense of direction on what they want to do. So I love working one-on-one with people on that. And then my newest book, which came out actually over a year ago, but it's still my sort of baby at this moment for what I really am excited to talk about, is Break Through Your BS. So anyone that wants to check that out can find it on Amazon. And also anyone listening, if you want some more of my work, you want a taste of it, I'm giving away my book, Why You're Stuck. It's the #1 bestseller, sold thousands of copies. I'm actually going to offer it for free for anyone checking this out. You can go to excuseproof.com/free offer and explore the work more that way.
And you know what? We'll actually have a link for that when this interview, for people that are viewing this interview. So that's great. So the coaching, is that virtual coaching? Can it be done virtually, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's absolutely done virtually. So that's done typically through phone or Skype. Awesome. Persons in the US, phone usually works, but if internationally, then oftentimes that's Skype.
Awesome. So tell us your website so people can get in touch with you that want this coaching.
Absolutely. So the best way is to actually send me a personal message. And that can be info@excuseproof.com. And I would also say, though, before you get the coaching, what I would encourage and recommend all the students do is read the book Why You're Stuck first. And then, so the best way to do that is, once again, you go to that link, you download the book, you check it out, and then after you read it, send me an email and tell me the impact it had on you. From there, that's one of the processes for coaching. So I don't actually take all the people that come to me for coaching, make sure it's a good fit, but that's one of the things to do first, is actually read that book and then see how coaching can take things even further. And
that book, Why You Were Stuck, that's one of your books also?
Yes, and that's a free book. So everyone can get that book absolutely free. Once again, there will be a link, excuseproof.com/free offer.
Awesome. Derek, thank you so much for your time today. Loved all the information you gave us. I'm sure all the viewers are going to get a tremendous amount of benefit from it also. So everybody, Derek Doepker, keep your eye out for him. Thanks for your time. It's been great speaking to you.
Thanks so much, Tim.